Okay, good morning to all. We are discussing unit number 3, that is process synchronization and process concurrency. So already we have discussed process synchronization concept, the classical problems of process synchronization, and we are discussing now the final topic, that is nothing but the deadlock. In the earlier lecture, what we have discussed, how the deadlock is occur, which are the necessary and sufficient conditions for the deadlock to occur, that we have discussed. Right. Now, methods to deal with the deadlock that we are going to see. That is means there is a deadlock prevention, deadlock avoidance, and deadlock occur and recover. So deadlock prevention is the method. So before going to that, we have also seen this resource allocation graph. I'll just revise it. So this resource allocation graph is nothing but one can say it is the representation of resources and representation of processes with the help of the edges. So resources are represented with the help of rectangle box, and whereas the processes they are represented with the help of your circle, right? And there are single instance type of resource or multiple instances type of resources are available. So and there are two types of edges, that is nothing but request edge and the allocation edge, or the this allocation edge. So the edge which is from process to resource, it is called as the request edge, and the edge from resource to process called as the allocation edge, right? So we have seen how resource allocation graph, it is helpful to detect whether the system may leads toward the deadlock or not. We have seen it already. If there is a cycle, if there is no cycle, no deadlock occur in the system. But if there is a cycle, deadlock may exist in your system. But there are two cases for the cycle. That is, if there is a cycle and if there are the resources, they are having exactly one instances, then we can say that the cycle is the necessary and the sufficient condition. But if the resources they are having more than one instance type, the cycle is necessary but not the sufficient condition. That we have to remember. And for that we have seen these two example. Yes, there is a cycle and resources they are having a single instance type. So cycle is there, definitely the system leads toward the deadlock state. But in this case, though the cycle exists, but as their resources, it has multiple instances. So cycle is the necessary but not the sufficient condition in this case. The next point we have seen, that is nothing but the methods for handling the deadlock: deadlock prevention, deadlock avoidance, deadlock occur and recover. So prevention means what? We have to prevent the deadlock. So it is said that prevention is always better than cure. So operating system tries to prevent the deadlock by preventing at least one of the necessary condition. Operating system try to prevent either mutual exclusion or either hold and wait, either circular wait, or either no preemption. So how the prevention takes place, or how operating system prevent? So it is clear that if the one of the condition gets successfully prevented, it is clear that one of the condition, if it is get successfully prevented, definitely system will never enter into the deadlock state. The deadlock is prevented 100%. So we'll see one by one which are these preventive conditions, or how the operating system is going to prevent the deadlock. And the next point is nothing but the deadlock avoidance. We have seen that the prevention is not possible, though theoretical it is possible concept prevention of the deadlock, but practically it is not possible. So practically, yes, sometime after some time the system may go towards the deadlock state. You cannot 100% prevent the deadlock. Yes, deadlock occur in the system. So what we have to deal here, we have to avoid the deadlock. We have to try to avoid the deadlock. And how to try to avoid the deadlock? It is with the help of some algorithm, with the help of some strategy, that is called as your banker's algorithm, the safety algorithm, and the resource request algorithm we are going to follow for the deadlock avoidance. But now we are discussing about the deadlock prevention policies, which are the different deadlock prevention policies, how to prevent the mutual exclusion. Already we have discussed. So mutual exclusion means what? As everybody knows that mutual exclusion means what? Once the mutual exclusion condition only holds for the non-shareable resource. That means what? Once the resource has been allocated, see carefully, once the resource has been allocated to a particular process, that resource will be remains with that particular process till its complete execution. That is called as a mutual exclusion. That means we can say that the non-shareable resources, they are mutually exclusive in nature. For example, printer. Once the printer is printing one job, once the printer is executing that particular process and printing something, then other process has to wait till the previous process or the earlier process completely finish its printing task, right? So this is the non-shareable resource. So what the other process has to do here? Other process has to definitely wait, right? So this is called as the mutual exclusion. If you try to prevent the mutual exclusion completely, then definitely you are able to prevent the deadlock in your system. You in the sense operating system, right? So the solution is that they said that he need not wait for the shareable resource. So use of shareable resource wherever is possible. Maximum use of shareable resources wherever it is possible, we have to go for the shareable resource to prevent the mutual exclusion condition. The second condition is nothing but your hold and wait. Now hold and wait condition says that to ensure that hold and wait never occur, we guarantee that. See here, hold and wait, why hold and wait occur in the system? For example, see here, suppose process P1 is holding some resource, for example R1. So R1, see here, I'm writing here, R1 is allocated to process P1. This is the way, but P1 is waiting to get that resource R2. So this is called as your hold. This is holding R1 and this is waiting for resource R2. Clear? So to avoid or to prevent this particular nature, this is called as your hold and wait. So if you want to ban or if you want to prevent this hold and wait, either you have to break this particular link or either you have to break this particular link. Clear the point or not? Hold and wait, why this occur? This has occurred because process P1 is holding this resource R1, means already the R1 resource is allocated to that particular process P1, but still P1 is in waiting state. See carefully why there is a cause of deadlock, because though the P1 is holding the resource R1, but still it is not in a running state. It is in a waiting state. Why it is waiting? It is waiting to get that resource R2, and R2 is allocated to some other process. For example, our R2 is busy in doing some other process work. Getting my point or not? So to prevent this condition, what the solution it is given. So we guarantee that whenever process requests a resource, it does not hold other resource. Meaning is that we have to ensure when the process is requesting particular resource, it must not hold the resources earlier. In other words, we can say that process, say for example P2 or P2 is only allowed to request the resource only if it does not have the resource allocated earlier. This is one case. So there are two cases are possible, or the two protocols or the two cases are possible here. So we'll see one by one. There are the two cases or the two protocols. So allocate. So how to do this? So what we have to do here, we have to either break. Again, I'll draw here. So P1 and it is requesting resource R2 and it is holding resource, for example R1. It is holding resource R1. So this is called as holder. So either you have to break this line or you have to break this particular line, which either one line should be break, so that you can prevent this particular hold and wait condition. So for that, what it is solution is that, so process is allowed to request the resource. See carefully, the process is allowed to request the resource only if it does not hold the resources earlier. Means if it is hold, if this means what we are doing here, you are breaking this line, you are breaking this particular condition. Means if the process P1 is holding resources, then it is not allowed to request another resource, because it has already acquired some resources, right? So if it has to request some other resources, then it has to release this earlier resources. If it has to request the resources, then it has to release the resources that has been acquired earlier, right? So what is the thing here? So P1 cannot request the resource R2 if it is holding resource R1. If it want to request that resource R2, then it has to release the resource R1, so that R1 will get free and R1 will be allocated to some other process. Or getting this point. So there are these two protocols. So how to achieve this solution? The two ways are there, or one can say there are the two cases are possible. Allocate all resources before being execution of the process. The first solution. The first solution says that suppose P1 comes into the system. So whatever may be the resources required by that particular process during its entire lifetime, you are going to allocate all the resources before start of its execution. So what happened? So during its execution, it will not demand any other resource. Getting my point or not? So if you follow the first case here, if you are trying to allocate all the resources before begin or before starting of the execution of the process P1, what it requires? If it requires R1, it requires, say for example R2, it requires, say for example, R3, you are allocating all these resources before starting off its execution. So what happened? So at the time of execution, P1 executes smoothly. It will never wait, because all required resources, they are already been allocated. Execution takes place, and as soon as the P1 completely execute, or whatever may be the resources allocated to that particular P1, they are now being released, and thus it can be used by some other process. This is the simple logic. The second case is that allow process to request the resource only when it has no resources earlier. The second case, that is allow this particular process if it does not hold any of the resources earlier. So these are the two protocols, or these are the two cases possible by which we are able to successfully prevent this condition that is called as the hold and wait condition. We are able to successfully stop this condition, right? But there are drawbacks for these two protocols, or there are two drawbacks for this particular scheme. The first drawback is low resource utilization, and second drawback is nothing but the starvation. If we implement this policy, if we implement either the first case, or if we implement either the second case, the two possibilities are there. That is nothing, resources may allocated but unused for the longer time. So it may happen that suppose P1, the first case says that allocate all resources before begin execution of the process. You are following the first policy. So P1 is being allocated resource R1, R2 and R3. But it may happen that the resource R3, though it is required, so process demanded the resource R1, R2, R3, the OS allocated all the resources R1, R2, R3 before beginning of the execution of the process. But in this case, there may be the chances that, or it is the probability that the resource R3, it may not be used by the process P1 for the longer duration of time. Means this may be possible. Yes, P1 process P1 is being currently executed, and it is executing, or it is using resource R1 and R2, and for a longer duration of time, it is not making use of this R3 resource, right? So that resource R3, it is underutilized, or it is not being utilized by P1, and as it is allocated to P1, no other process is allowed to utilize that R3 resource. That is called as the low resource utilization. Getting my point or not? Because though you are initially assigning the resources to the process, but what happens in this case, there may be the chances that the resource may not be utilized by the process, and that resource remains as it is pending with that particular process, and neither process can use that resource. Low resource utilization. And starvation means what? The process that needs several popular resources may have to wait indefinitely, because one of the resources need to always allocate to other process. So starvation means what? There are some process, so process, say for example, process number P7, and P7 requires this R3 resources. So there is a starvation of this particular process. Starvation means what? Process P7 never get this resource R3, because this R3 is being assigned to the process P1. So it will never get chance to have the resource R3. So this is the case. This is the discussion, we can say entire discussion about how to prevent the hold and wait condition, right? The third condition is nothing but your no preemption. So no preemption. Now we'll see here how the operating system prevent the no preemption condition. No preemption means what? Once the resource has been no preemption means what? No preemption of the resources that have already been allocated, that is not available to preempt allocated resources. Means it is very simple word. It is very simple case. Once the resource, say for example, once this resource is R1 is being allocated to process P1, this is the allocation. So it will continue with this process P1 till the 100% execution of the process P1. It will continue till its 100% or the complete execution of that particular process P1. So this is the case. This is the scenario, and we have to break this scenario, or we have to find out the solution for the prevention of this particular scenario. So what is given here to avoid this condition? Following is the protocol, or following is the cases. So if the process, see carefully, if the process holding some resources and requests another resources, then it cannot immediately allocate it to it. Process P1, for example, and it has hold. It is holding resources. For example, this is the line of holding, means R1 is there and R2 is there. Right? P1, if there is a process holding some resources and it is requesting, say for example, it is requesting for resource R3. Clear? Then it cannot immediately allocate it to it. That is, all current resources are preempted. That is, resources are released. These preempted resources added to the list of resources for which the process is waiting, means you are maintaining the list here. So you are maintaining the list which are the resources required by the process, and finally the process is restarted when it go again with this old and the new resources. So what the first condition says that if the process is holding some resources like this R1 and R2 and it is demanding for the resource R3, then immediately you are not going to allocate the R3, but instead of that, what you are going to do here, you release the resource, you are going to release the resource R1 and R2, and you make a list, say for the process P1 require R1, it require R2, and it requires, say for example, R3, right? You make a list, or you prepare a list, you in the sense operating system prepare a list. Here all these resources are required by that particular process for its complete execution. So release the resources which are currently being allocated to that particular process, and once the resources are being, and this is not allocated at all, right? So but the OS comes to know that from this list, the OS come to know that yes, for process P1 resource R1, R2 and R3, these are required. So what happened here is you stop the execution of the process and restart its execution. You restart or the restart the execution of the process P1, and as soon as the process is being restarted, all these resources are being allocated to that particular process, so that for the next execution time the process executes successfully. This is the first case. This is the first way how we are going to prevent the no preemption condition, right? Because this is the non-preempted type of resource. R3 is a non-preempted type of resource, and if it will be not removed, if it is allocated to some other process, it will not be removed from that particular process. So what we have to do here, you have to deallocate whatever may be the resources allocated to that particular process, and you have to make a list. Means operating system is making the list, and the list is nothing but, so what is this list contain? This list contain the requested resource. The requested resource means this R3, and these are the currently allocated resource, means these are R1 and R2. So this contains the requested as well as the allocated resource. List prepare, and after the preparation of list, you have to restart that particular process, and once the process is restarted, it will gain its old as well as the new resources. The old means R1, R2, which are already allocated, it will be gain its old resources, and the new resource which it requires, then the process executes successfully. This is the first case. Now the second case we have to see here, if the process requests some resources, check whether available. Means if the process, say for example P1 is requesting some resources, it is requesting resources, you have to check whether the resource is available or not. For example, if the process P1, again same case, and if it is requesting resource, say for example R1, right? Then what do I have to do here? If it is all available, if R1 is available, there is no question, you can directly, this request stage can be converted into the allocation age. This R1 directly allocated to the P1 process. That is the simple solution. But if it is not available, if R1 is not available, means we have to check what R1 is doing currently, right? Which operations are being performed on R1 currently, that we have to check. We in this operating system has to check. So check whether they are allocated, whether check this particular resource is being allocated to some other process that is waiting for additional resource. It may happen that R1 process, R1 is being allocated, this R1, this is the way. Say for example, this is the P2 process. So R1 is allocated, sorry, this is not the line, this is the way. R1 is allocated to the process P2, for example, right? Our allocation line R1 is being allocated to the process P2, and that P2 is, say for example, it is in a waiting state. So if the P2 process is in a waiting, so if the resource is in such a way that if the process P2 is in a waiting state, so what is the solution? So preempt the desired resource from the waiting process and allocate them to the requesting process. So you can, if this is in a waiting state, you can remove this line, and this line will become now allocation, means allocate this R1 process to the P1 process. Why? Because the currently holding process that RP2, it is currently in a waiting state. See carefully. That's why it is in a waiting state. That's why it can be removed from that particular process. Resource can be removed from the process P2, and it is being allocated to process P1. Right. The second case, if the resource neither available nor held by the waiting process, means if it is not available and it is not being held by the other process, the requesting process must wait. Now it has to wait here. This process is currently in a running state. Say for example, here it is not in waiting state, but instead of that, I can say it is currently in a execution state or in a running state P2 process. So what we have to do here, while it is waiting, some of its resources may be preempted if other process requested. So it may happen that P1 process, so P1 it has already hold, say for example resource R7, resource number R7, it is already hold by that particular process. So here you are not allocating that resource R1 to P2 because P2 currently in a running state. So process P1 is demanding the resource R1, but R1 is allocated to such a process P2 that is currently in a running state or currently in a execution state. So what we have to do here, the resources which are allocated, and so that's why P1 has to wait. The conclusion is that P1 has to wait, and when the P1 enters into the waiting state, its resources may be removed. Getting my point or not? When P1 enters into the waiting state, whatever may be the resources allocated to that particular process P1, that for example R7 may be allocated to P3 process, for example. Getting my point or not? So this is the case. This is the case. If this process, so process has to wait, and while waiting, operating system may remove or may release its resources that can be allocated to some other process, right? So this protocol is applied to the resources whose state can be easily saved and restored later, for example memory or registers. So this is the way so we just will revise this. If the process requests some resources, we have to check the condition. This is the first condition, this is the second condition, and this is the third condition. Process requests some resources, we have to check the availability of the resources are. Resources are available, no doubt you are directly going to allocate the resource to that particular requesting process. First condition is fulfilled. Now the second case, what second case is that we have to check the resource, and that resource is allocated to such a process P2, that P2 is currently in a waiting state because it is in a waiting state, right? So if the process currently holding process is in a waiting state, then what we are going to do here, we are going to remove that resource R and assigning that resource to the requesting process, right? This is the second case. And the third case is that the resource, again resource, it is not free, but it is allocated to the such a process, say for example P2, and P2 currently is a running state. P2 currently is in a running state, or it is in execution state. So what we have to do here, so the requesting process, which is the requesting process here, P1 is the requesting process. So P1 has to wait. P1 has to wait, and while waiting, some of its resources already allocated to that particular process that may be released, and that may be used by that can be used by some other processes here. So this is the way how we can deal with the no preemption strategy, how we can prevent the no preemption strategy. Clear? Okay. Next point. The next condition is nothing but your circular wait. Circular wait condition. We will see here. So if we want to prevent the circular wait, one way to ensure circular wait never occur, see carefully, make total ordering of the resource type and each process request a resource in their increasing order. Means here we are going to give the order. For example, the resource is tape drive, a resource is disk, means secondary storage, and printer. Tape drive means it is input resource. This is nothing but your storage resource. Means this is the disk, secondary storage, and this is nothing but your printer resource. So you are going to give the priority. Ordering means what? You are going to set the priority to these resources, right? So first is priority to the tape drive, fifth priority is to the disk, and 12th number priority, 12th number is given to that printer resource. And we have to, our operating system will allocate the resources. Operating system allocate the resources depending upon the priority number or the order number. So R equal to R1, R2, R3. These are the resource R1, resource R2, resource R3, dot 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 to Rn. Unique number of each resource type. Numbers are being assigned to each resource. Using this number, compare the two numbers. We are going to compare the resource number here in case of avoiding or in case of preventing the circular wait condition. Process initially requests any number of resource type Ri. For example, initially before starting the execution, the process can request any number of resources. For example, P R1, R2, R7, R15, R100, or any number. After that, process can request resource of the type Rj if and only if f of Rj is greater than equal to f of Ri. Meaning is that if there is earlier, it can have any number of resources. That is, each process can request resource in increasing order of their enumerations. Increasing order of the enumeration. Increasing order of enumeration means what? Initially, say for example, R1 is requested, R1 is allocated. Then it can go for R3. Then it can go for R5, then it can go for R9, then it can go for, say, for example, R12. So this is the way. But after R12, it cannot go beyond, that is R7. It cannot go reverse in the way. So process must go on requesting the resources by increasing order of their resource numbers. This is the way how we are going to prevent the circular wait conditions. So yes, initially you can give the request, I require this number of 7 number of resources, and their numbers are like this, and it has to use the resources in increasing order. But so, and when it go for R12 and R15, so it has to go in the upward direction. It cannot go in the reverse direction. It cannot now request R4 or R3 once it reaches to R12 or R15 resource. This is the way, right? So hence the process wants, so here if the process wants tape drive and printer at the same time, must first request tape drive and then request for printer. So tape drive is the one. So first request for tape drive, then it requests for disk drive, and then it requests for the printer device. Getting this point? So with the help of this, we are going to successfully prevent, we are able to successfully prevent the circular wait condition, right? So these are the methods, or these this total discussion is deal with the deadlock prevention. So preventing the deadlock with the help of preventing at least one of the necessary condition. If the operating system is successfully able to prevent one of the necessary condition, then definitely the deadlock is prevented in the system, right? So either you have to prevent the hold and wait condition. We have to see, we have seen already how to prevent the hold and wait condition, or you have to prevent the mutual exclusion condition, that also we have seen, or you have to prevent the mutual exclusion condition, or circular wait condition. So prevention, how to prevent at least one condition to prevent the deadlock. That is the discussion total. Now the next part of the discussion, or the next point here, is that avoidance of the deadlock. How to avoid? So prevention, so already we have discussed that the prevention is not, prevention practically it is not possible, though theoretically it is okay, but practically not possible. So practically we have to avoid the deadlock. We, in the sense, operating system, try to avoid the deadlock. So how it is, we'll see. Deadlock avoidance. By deadlock prevention, at least one of the necessary condition cannot occur, that we have to see. But the drawback for the prevention policies is that low device utilization, and it reduces the system throughput. So if we follow the deadlock prevention policy, it has the two limitations, that is nothing but the low device utilization or the low resource utilization, as well as it reduces the system throughput. System throughput get reduced here. So hence the algorithm has been developed that ensures that system will never enters a deadlock state. That is nothing but your deadlock avoidance. Means we are trying that system will never go toward the deadlock state. That is nothing but we are going to avoid the occurrence of the deadlock in the system. Means operating system is going to avoid the occurrence of the deadlock in the system. So how? So it ensures that there can never be a circular wait condition. So deadlock avoidance involves the safe state, resource allocation graph, and Banker's algorithm. So there are the three methods, or there are the three concepts which are related. Actually, these are the three important issues that are related, or we have to discuss with reference to the deadlock avoidance policy. Clear this point or not? So deadlock prevention is over. So how to prevent the deadlock, we have seen by preventing at least one of the necessary condition. Now the second point is that we have to avoid the deadlock. So for avoiding of the deadlock, there is algorithm, there must be some algorithm. Algorithm means there must be some logic must be involved, or there must be some step, so that by following that particular certain step, we are able to avoid the deadlock. Means operating system will be able to avoid the deadlock in the system. So we'll see. And the three concepts we have to study here, that is, the first is nothing but the safe state, the resource allocation graph. Again, we have to see the resource allocation graph. How the resource allocation graph it is useful for the deadlock avoidance. In the earlier case, we have seen that the resource allocation graph, they are used for the deadlock detection. Means with the help of cycle detection algorithm, we able to predict whether the system go toward the deadlock or not. That is okay. But now for the avoidance, deadlock avoidance, how the resource allocation graph is useful, that also we have to see. And finally, we have to go for the Banker's algorithm, very important algorithm in our syllabus. So first, safe state. Now, safe state is state of the system. State in the sense system state, operating system state. Clear. The state of the system is safe if the system can allocate resources to each process in some order and still avoid the deadlock. So when we can say that the system is in a safe state, or when we can say the operating system is in safe state, whenever operating system is able to allocate all the resources necessary for all the processes, then we can say that yes, the system is in a safe state. There is no problem in the system. There is no any issues arises of allocation of the resources in the system. The system state is safe. So the definition of the safe state is given like this: a sequence of the processes P1, P2, dot 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 up to Pn is a safe sequence. See, and see here, a system is in a safe state only if there exists a safe sequence. It is important statement, right? Thus, by heart this statement: a system is in a safe state only if there exists a safe sequence. Only if there exists a safe sequence. So, what is the safe sequence again? A sequence of process P1, P2, dot 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 Pn is a safe sequence. It is called as a safe sequence if for each process Pi, the resources that Pi can still request can be satisfied by the currently available resources plus the resources held by the process Pj. Meaning is that by allocating all available resources, the request made by all the processes may be satisfied. Request made by all the processes must be satisfied. Then such a sequence is called as the safe sequence. Means you can have, for example, consider P1, P2, P1, P2, P3, P4. So meaning is that if operating system executes the processes in this manner, first it will execute P1, then it will execute P2 process, then it will execute P3, and finally it will execute the P4 process. And by executing this, see carefully, by executing the processes in this manner, so for execution process requires, say for example, R1 and R2 and R3. So all these processes require these resources, three types of resources. So process P1 execute first, then process P2 execute, whatever may be its need of the resources, it will be fulfilled. Then P2 execute whatever may be its requirement or as well as the demand or the need of the resources, that will be fulfilled. Then P3 will execute its demand of the resources, it also will be fulfilled. And P4 execute and it will be get all its resources. P4 completely execute, there will be no any deadlock occur in the system, or the system never move towards the deadlock state. So this particular sequence is called as the safe sequence. Safe sequence. Safe sequence of process execution. Safe sequence of process execution means this is the one sequence key. Yes, operating system execute the process in this particular way, or it may happen that, or it may possible that it will execute process P2 first, then it will execute P4, then it will execute P1, and it will execute P3 process, for example. And whatever again they require R1, R2, and R3. They require R1, R2, R3 for the execution. But successfully, without any process entering into the deadlock, entering into the waiting state, without getting into the deadlock condition, successfully the process P2 execute, then P4 execute, then P1 execute, and P3 execute. This is called as the safe sequence, right? And by executing the safe sequence, see carefully, yeah. By executing this safe sequence, the state of the system is called as the safe state. Safe state of the system, right? So by executing the processes in a particular way, that yes, meaning is that we are means operating system execute the process in a proper sequence or in a some sequence in a such a way that all processes get the resources and all processes complete their execution without any problem, without any disturbance, without entering into the waiting state. That's why the system also not go towards the deadlock state or towards the unsafe state, right? That's why we are calling this sequence is called as safe sequence. And such a state of the system by following the safe sequence is called as the safe state of the system. Clear the definition of the safe state. Safe state is nothing but when the system is in a safe state only if there exists a safe sequence of the process execution. So process execution sequence may be your either of the sequence is possible. You can P4 execution first, then P1, then P2, and then P3. Any sequence by which your system remains into the safe state is called as the safe sequence, right? So see here, the sequence is a safe sequence. If no such sequence, then system is in an unsafe state. If we do not follow, or if operating system do not follow the safe sequence, then that particular sequence is called as the unsafe. That is system state becomes the unsafe state. If there is a no safe sequence followed by the operating system, if there is no safe sequence followed by the operating system, then we can say that the system enters into the unsafe state. See here, if we diagrammatically view this particular state of this system, this is operating system state. So unsafe state and the unsafe state and the safe state. See, this is the safe state, this is the unsafe state, right? And there is a distribution between the safe and unsafe state. Deadlock is your unsafe state. So this, say for example, this is the state, and this state of the system is a safe state. This dot which I have drawn here, it is called as the safe state. And this safe state, it is achieved with the help of our safe sequence. For example, P2 or P3, then P4 and P1, for example. By executing the processes in this particular way, this is called as the safe sequence, SS. By executing this safe sequence, the process state, the system state remains in the safe state, right? This is the way. But if there is a no safe sequence of the process execution, if there is a no such safe sequence, then this system state may leads toward the unsafe state. The system state, when it is earlier, when the system is here, now it changes its state and it go to here, and it is leads to the unsafe state. The system unsafe state means it is a dangerous zone. For example, unsafe state means it is a dangerous zone. We can say that it will move towards this particular unsafe state. And when, see carefully, when the system move toward the unsafe state, there is a chances that the system may move toward the deadlock state. The chances or the probability of being into the deadlock state is increases when it is unsafe state. Getting my point or not? If the system state is here, so there is no chance, because you are executing, so the system is executing the safe sequence of the process execution. System is completely safe, no chance to go toward the deadlock state. Here from the diagram it is clear that thus directly it will not go toward the deadlock state, because system currently in a safe state. But if it fails to follow the safe sequence, so why? The safe sequence is important. See carefully. Yeah, if it fails to follow the safe sequence of the process execution, it indicates that the system enters into the unsafe state. But immediately it will not go toward the deadlock state. Immediately it will not move toward the deadlock state. It will first move into the unsafe state. And once the system state becomes unsafe state, it may increase the chances that it may lead toward the deadlock state immediately. Right. So safe state is not deadlock state. See carefully. Safe state is not the deadlock state. Safe state is not the deadlock state. Then we can say that conversely, deadlock is unsafe state. Deadlock state is unsafe state because it is belong to unsafe state. But not all unsafe states are the deadlock states. So your system state may be here. Yes, it may be unsafe state, but it is not a deadlock state. But it is possibility that it will go toward the deadlock. If I can say here is my system state, but here I can say it is unsafe. Yes, 100% it is unsafe, and there are more chances that it will go toward this one because it is nearer to the deadlock. But if my system state is here, so I can say that my system is very safe, and there are less chances to enter into the deadlock state. Getting this point? So this is the same. An unsafe state may lead to the deadlock state. Definitely, if it is unsafe state, it has more chances to get into the deadlock state. That is all discussion about the safe sequence of the process execution and safe state and safe sequence. Remember these 2 points, because these 2 points we require in further discussion: safe sequence and the safe state. What is the meaning of safe sequence of the process execution, and what exactly is the meaning of safe state of the system? Right, now we'll see how the resource allocation graph is useful for deadlock avoidance. Right. So you know that there are the two edges. That is nothing but, say for example, process, request, resource. This one is called as the request edge. And for example, the process is allocated a resource already. This is nothing but your allocation edge. So in addition to the request edge and allocation edge, one new edge is being added here in resource allocation graph. One new edge is introduced, and that is called as the claim edge. That is particular edge is called as the claim edge. So claim edge means in the sense that in future that process may claim that resource. It may claim or may not claim. Means it is not requesting the resource. So requesting is different, and you are going to add some claim edge, that is P may claim the resource in future. The process P may claim the resource in future means it may require or it may demand that resource in future, or may not be required, or may not claim. So if this is the case, how our resource allocation graph is useful for the deadlock avoidance, that we are going to see here. So see here, P of I to R of J indicate the process Pi may request resource Rj at some time in future. That is called as the claim age. C. When process requests a resource, claim age converted into the request age. And actually, when actually the process requesting the resource, then this claim age now being converted into the request age. Getting this point or not? So when claim age means what? It is in future prediction, and when actually in future, when it is demand that yes, now when after some time when the process P1 requests resource R2, then this claim is converted into the request stage. So we know that resources may be claimed prior in the system. Yes, you can claim any number of resources. So P1 is there. P1 can claim, yes, I require, say for example, 5 resources in future execution. That is before process Pi start executing. All claim edges must appear in the resource allocation graph. So here is the resource, the role of resource allocation graph came into the picture. Yes, the earlier before start of the execution, all the edges marked as a claim edges in the resource allocation graph, right? So when we have to check for the safety by using the cycle detection algorithm. If no cycle exists, then allocation of the resources leave the system in safe state. Yes, already we see that if there is a cycle, if there is no cycle, then definitely the system will be in a safe state. But if the cycle is found, allocation will put the system is in a unsafe state. For example, one example is given here. See carefully. R1. So P1 is R1 is allocated to process P1, and this P2 is requesting resource R1. P1 is requesting R2, and P2 is requesting resource R2. P2 request R1 and R2. Say for example, P2 requesting R1 and R2. Suppose P2 request R2. P2 request R2. Although R2 is currently free. R2 is currently free because P1 is also requesting and P2 is also requesting. It is not being allocated. Although R2 is currently free, we cannot allocate it to P2. Why? Because if we change this particular age, so it will going to create the circle in this particular system. And as the circle is there, so there is a chances that it will go towards the deadlock state. So since this action create a cycle in the graph as shown in below, so the cycle is created, and as the cycle is created, the R2 get allocated to P2, a cycle indicates that system is in unsafe state. When the cycle is formed in the system, when the cycle is formed in the graph, so cycle formation indicates that there is a chances that the system may enter into the deadlock state. So this is the way how the resource allocation graph is used for the avoidance. So what we have to do here, we are not going to convert this request age into allocation age at all. How? So you may ask that, so how to avoid the deadlock? So yes, the process P2 is requesting resource R2, means it is claiming this resource particular R2, and P1 is also claiming the resource R2. But if we allocate this particular age, if we make this age in this way, so definitely it will going to create a cycle, and as the cycle exists, so it may create it may lead toward the deadlock state. This is the way. Clear? So this is the way how the resource allocation graph is useful for the deadlock avoidance, right? So claim age is introduced. Claim age means what? In future, it may require the resource, and once it is required the resource, you have to convert this claim age into the request age. But while converting this age, we have to see that there must not be any cycle creation. If it going to create the cycle, then definitely there will be a deadlock occur in the system, right? Okay. So the conclusion we have seen in this particular topic, resource allocation graph, the methods for handling deadlock prevention and the methods for handling deadlock avoidance. The outcome is nothing but to apply the concept of process synchronization, mutual exclusion, and the deadlock. The very important questions to be asked in the examination: explain the resource allocation graph with the suitable example. Discuss any two methods for deadlock prevention, how to prevent the deadlock. Explain resource allocation graph with example, and how resource allocation graph is useful for deadlock avoidance. Just now we have discussed it, that we have to answer with the help of suitable example that we have also discussed how to give the example, right? These are the references. You can refer the NPTEL video. Go and search NPTEL video for operating system as per the syllabus. You can refer, and it is very much useful. A lot of material available is on website also, various web resources. So thank you for the today's lecture. Okay.